Your blood tells a story that your family may have never told you. It tells it not in words, not in documents, not in the stories your parents passed down, or the records that survived, or the names that were kept or changed or erased. Your blood tells its story through your body, through the bones you were built with, through the skin you live inside, through the features you see in the mirror every morning that you inherited from people whose names you may never know. And some of those features, some of the things you have carried your entire life without questioning where they came from, are older than this country, older than the language you speak, older than the religion you were taught. They come from the first people, the original people, the people who walked this land for thousands of years before anyone else arrived. And if those features live in your body, then the blood of those people lives in you, whether your family told you or not, whether the records confirm it or not, whether you have a card or a certificate or a family tree or nothing at all. The body does not need paperwork. The body is the paperwork. And today I am going to show you how to read it. I want to say something important before I give you the 5 traits. I am not here to tell you that having one of these features makes you Native American. Identity is more than blood. It is culture. It is community. It is a lived experience that cannot be reduced to cheekbones or hair texture. I am not here to hand out membership based on a mirror. What I am here to do is show you the physical evidence that your ancestors may have left behind in your body. Evidence that was designed to survive. Evidence that traveled through generations of mixing and marrying and moving and forgetting, and still showed up in you. Because the body holds what the family releases. The body keeps the record even when the record keepers stop keeping it. And if you see these traits in yourself, it does not mean you should claim a tribe. It means you should ask questions. Look deeper. Honor what your body is telling you about where you came from. Because where you came from matters, even if nobody told you where it was. The first physical trait is the structure of your face, specifically your cheekbones. This is the trait that survives the longest through the most generations of mixing. You can dilute the blood 5, 6, 7 generations deep, and the cheekbones will still announce themselves. They sit high, they sit wide. They give the face a strength and a width that is different from European bone structure. If you look in the mirror and your cheekbones are prominent, if they catch the light, if they give your face a sculpted quality that people have commented on your entire life, that is the oldest signature your ancestors left in your body. It is written in bone, and bone is the last thing to change. My grandmother could look at a person's face and tell you what was in their blood. Not perfectly, not scientifically, but with an accuracy that came from 70 years of watching faces. She said the cheekbones are the handwriting of the ancestors. She said when she looked at certain people in town, people who had no idea they carried native blood, she could see it. In the way the light hit their face, in the way the bone pushed against the skin, in the shadow that fell beneath the cheek in the afternoon sun. She said most of them didn't know. Their families had buried the information so deep that nobody alive remembered. But the face remembered. The face always remembers. Because you can change a name in 1 generation. You can change a language in 2. You can change a religion in 3. But you cannot change bone. Bone is the last witness, and it testifies forever. The second physical trait is your skin's relationship with the sun, not your skin color in the winter, your skin's behavior in the summer. There are people who burn in the sun, and there are people who brown in the sun. And the browning, the way certain skin absorbs sunlight and deepens instead of reddening, that is one of the most reliable indicators of indigenous ancestry anywhere in the world. My people lived under the open sky for thousands of years. No buildings, no roofs for most of the day. Our skin adapted to the sun the way any living thing adapts to its environment. It learned to receive the sun instead of fighting it. And that adaptation did not disappear when the bloodlines mixed. It traveled, through generations, into bodies that look European in December, but turn a deep golden brown by July. If your skin does that, if you have always tanned easily while the people around you burned, your skin is remembering something your family may have forgotten. I knew a woman with blonde hair and blue eyes who tanned darker than anyone in her neighborhood every summer. And every summer people asked her where she went on vacation. They assumed she must have gone somewhere tropical because there was no way a blonde woman in Ohio could turn that color from the local sun. And she hadn't gone anywhere. She was just standing in her own backyard. And her skin was doing what her ancestors' skin had done for 10,000 years, receiving the sun, welcoming it, turning it into color instead of damage. She didn't know why until she was in her 50s, and an aunt on her deathbed told her the truth. There was a great-grandmother, full native, married a white farmer, told her children to never speak of it, and the children obeyed. And the grandchildren never knew. But the skin knew. The skin had been testifying every summer for 3 generations, and nobody was reading the evidence. Before I share the next teaching, I need to tell you something. I am not going to be here forever, and most of what I know was never written anywhere. So I sat down and I wrote it. All of it. 20 teachings, 4 parts in the order they were meant to be received. The ones about understanding what lives inside you. The ones about reading what your body has been trying to tell you. The ones I have never said on camera. It is called The Native Way, and it costs less than 1 dinner you will not remember. Scan the code on your screen or look in the comments. But do not leave yet, because the next 3 traits are the ones that people tell me made them look in the mirror and see themselves for the first time. The third physical trait is the texture and behavior of your hair. Native hair has characteristics that are distinct and persistent across generations. It tends to be thick, not fine. Thick in a way that hairdressers comment on. You have been told your whole life that you have a lot of hair, that your hair is heavy, that it is dense, it grows fast. It resists curl in a specific way, not straight like Asian hair and not wavy like most European hair. It has its own texture, a weight to it, a darkness to it even in families where the rest of the coloring has lightened through generations of mixing. The hair holds the pigment longer than the skin does. You might have fair skin and light eyes, but your hair is dark. Darker than it should be based on the rest of your coloring. That darkness is the old blood expressing itself through the one feature that refuses to let go of its original color. My grandmother's hair was black until the day she died. Not the kind of black that fades to gray in your 50s. Black. Deep, heavy, oil-slick black. And when she was very old and the rest of her body had faded and softened and lightened, her hair remained dark, as if it was the last part of her that refused to surrender the original design. She told me that native hair carries memory the way tree rings carry seasons. She said every inch of growth is a record, and the color, the thickness, the weight of it, all of that is the ancestors saying we are still here, we are still in this body, we have not left. If your hair has been darker and thicker than your family can explain, if hairdressers have told you that your hair doesn't behave like the hair they usually work with, if your hair has its own rules that don't seem to match the rest of your genetic presentation, that is the third trait. And it has been announcing itself on top of your head your entire life. I want to tell you about a woman named Claire, who had bright red hair and freckles and skin so fair she looked like she came straight from Ireland. And she did. Irish on both sides. Every document, every photograph, every family story was Irish. But Claire's hair, underneath the red, had a thickness and a weight that her sisters didn't have. Her hairdresser used to say, "I don't know where this comes from. You've got enough hair for 3 people." And Claire thought nothing of it, until her mother was dying. And on the last night, her mother said something she had kept inside for over 50 years. She said, "Your father's grandmother was not Irish. She was native." And the family never spoke of it because in the town they lived in, that would have been the end of everything. Jobs, friendships, church membership, everything. So the grandmother became Irish in the story, and the name changed, and the photographs were put away, and the truth was buried. But the hair didn't get the message. The hair kept growing in thick and heavy and dark underneath the red dye Claire had been using since she was 16. The hair kept testifying. And when Claire stopped dyeing it after her mother's confession, her roots came in darker than any Irish root should be. And she understood. The hair had been telling her for 40 years. She just wasn't listening. The fourth physical trait is the shape and structure of your hands. This one surprises people because most people never look at their hands as evidence of ancestry. But my grandmother did. She said the hands tell the blood. Native hands tend to have certain features that persist through generations. The fingers are often broad rather than narrow. The palm is wide and strong. There is a thickness to the base of the thumb that is different from European hand structure. And here is the one that makes people stop and stare at their own hands when I say it. Look at the back of your hand, at the space between your thumb and your first finger. If that space is wide, if the thumb sits far from the fingers naturally, at a wider angle than you see on most people's hands, that is a trait that shows up disproportionately in people with indigenous ancestry. It was functional. Hands that could grip wider surfaces. Hands that could hold tools in a way that narrow European hands could not. Hands that were built for the work of living on the land without modern tools. Those hands were designed by thousands of years of adaptation. And that design does not disappear because the great-grandchildren move to a city and work at a desk. I want to tell you what happened when I mentioned this trait to a group of people once. 12 people in a room. And I said, "Look at your hands. Look at the space between your thumb and your first finger." And every single person in the room looked down. And 3 of them looked back up at me with wide eyes, because they had never noticed it before. But now that I said it, they could see it. The wide angle, the thick base, the hands that didn't match the hands of the people sitting next to them. And one of those 3 people, a man in his 60s with no knowledge of any native ancestry in his family, started crying. Not loudly, quietly, because he had spent his whole life looking at his hands and wondering why they looked different from his brother's hands, why they were wider, thicker, built differently. And he always assumed it was random, a genetic quirk. And now, sitting in that room, looking at the space between his thumb and his finger, he was considering for the first time that his hands were not a quirk. They were a heritage. And the heritage had been hiding in his hands for 60 years, waiting to be recognized. The 5th physical trait is the one you cannot see but can feel. And it is the most powerful one on this list. It is the way your body responds to the land. I talked about this in my last teaching about the signs of native blood, but I want to go deeper here because this is where the physical and the spiritual meet. There is a nervous system response that happens in people with native ancestry when they stand on open land. Not a thought, not an emotion, a physical response. The heart rate slows, the breathing deepens, the shoulders drop. The muscles in the jaw and the neck and the back release tension that they have been holding for days or weeks or months. It is as if the body recognizes the ground it is standing on, as if the feet are sending a signal to the brain that says, "We are home." and the brain responds by putting every system into rest. Not sleep, rest. The kind of rest that the body cannot achieve inside a building. The kind of rest that requires sky above you and earth beneath you, and nothing between you and the horizon. This response is not psychological. It is not because you like nature. Many people like nature. This response is physiological. It happens in the body before the mind has time to form an opinion. It happens the moment your feet touch the ground. And it is disproportionately strong in people who carry indigenous blood, because your body is carrying 10,000 years of data about what this land feels like. Your ancestors' feet walked this exact earth. Their nervous systems calibrated to this exact environment, and that calibration was passed down through blood, through bone, through the wiring of a nervous system that remembers what it was designed for, even when the conscious mind has no idea. If the land does something to your body that buildings cannot do, if open sky calms you in a way that no medicine can match, if the feeling of dirt under your feet creates a peace that your brain cannot manufacture on its own, your body is telling you where you come from. Listen to it. It has been telling you your whole life. You just never knew what it was saying. I watched this happen once to a man who had no idea what he was feeling. He was visiting from the city, a businessman, suit and tie his whole life, concrete and glass and fluorescent lights for 40 years. And someone brought him out to the land, open desert, red earth, nothing for miles but sky and rock and silence. And this man, this city man who had never once expressed any interest in nature or the outdoors or anything that didn't involve a conference room, this man stood on that open ground and started weeping. He didn't know why. He couldn't explain it. He said, "I don't know what's happening to me." And I said, "Your body knows this place, even if you don't." And he looked at me like I was crazy. And then he looked at the ground beneath his feet, and then he looked at the horizon. And he stood there for almost 30 minutes without moving, just breathing, just being held by the land. And when he finally spoke again, he said, "I feel like I've been homesick my entire life, and I just walked through the front door." That man went home and started asking his family questions, questions nobody had ever asked. And the answers came slowly, the way answers do when they have been buried for generations. But they came. A grandmother on his father's side, Cherokee, never spoken of, married into a white family and disappeared into the family story like a stone into a river. But the river carried the stone, through his father, through him, into his feet. And his feet brought him home to land he had never visited, but that his body had been dreaming about for 40 years behind a desk. I want to say something to the people who recognized one trait, and something different to the people who recognized all 5. If you recognized one, it may mean nothing. One trait alone is not proof. It is a whisper, a maybe, a reason to be curious but not certain. But if you recognized 3 or 4 or all 5, the whispers become a voice, and the voice is saying something that deserves to be heard, not acted on recklessly, not used to claim something that requires more than physical features to claim, but heard, respected, investigated, because the body that carries these traits did not create them from nowhere. They came from someone, and that someone had a life and a story and a people and a name. And the fact that you are here, carrying their cheekbones and their skin and their hair and their hands and their nervous system, means that their story did not end when they were buried. It continued, in you, through you, and it will continue after you, in whatever children and grandchildren carry the thread forward. You are not the end of the line. You are the middle of a story that started before recorded history, and will continue after everyone alive today is gone. The traits in your body are the proof that the story is still being written. And every time you look in the mirror and see the cheekbones catch the light, the story turns another page. 5 traits. The cheekbones that catch the light, the skin that receives the sun, the hair that holds the darkness, the hands that grip wider, and the body that rests on the land. 5 traits that have been living in your body since the day you were born, waiting to be recognized, waiting for someone to point at them and say, "Those are not accidents. Those are not quirks. Those are not random features that you got from nobody in particular. Those are the signatures of the first people, written in bone and skin and hair and hand and nerve, and they survived everything. They survived the name changes. They survived the hidden marriages. They survived the family silences. They survived the shame and the secrecy and the century of erasure. They survived because the body does not forget. The body cannot forget. The body carries the truth long after the mouth stops speaking it. And your body, right now, today, is speaking a truth that you may have never heard from anyone in your family. But you have felt it. In the way the sun treated you, in the way the land held you, in the way your hands looked different and your hair behaved differently, and your face carried a structure that didn't match the family story. You felt it. And now you know what it was. It was the blood. It has always been the blood. If what you heard today stayed with you, the book is there. The Native Way. 20 teachings, 100 pages, written the way I would speak to you if we were sitting together. Scan the QR code on the screen with your phone or find the link in the comments. Read 1 chapter. Sit with it. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which trait did you see in yourself the moment I described it? I read every comment. And if this is the kind of conversation you have been looking for, subscribe to this channel. We are not collecting viewers here. We are collecting people who remember. Come back next week. I am not done teaching yet.